Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Belinda here from Visualized NZ, and I'm bringing to you today the first episode in Trashcraft Tuesday. So excited about this, so thank you Prue for dropping me a suggestion on what you'd like to see and the inspiration to turn it into a series, hopefully ongoing weekly series. So Trashcraft Tuesday is going to be about taking items that would normally be thrown away and doing something creative with them. Mostly it will be to do with journaling, so something we can turn into a journal or pop into our journals. But there might be some other things along the way, some more arty practices maybe. I really don't know. We're just going to see what develops. But I'm excited to bring you this first episode, and I've got something super cool to share with you. So hopefully you can see these. These have a little window in them. It's made from a cellophane bag from packaging. So our first item of trash is some packaging. And they're little faux specimen slides. Just really cool ephemera to pop into a journal. The second item of trash is the card I've made it out of. Now these are collectible cards that come from the supermarket from Countdown here in New Zealand. I don't know if this is a New Zealand specific thing or whether it happens around the world. Where the supermarket run promotions from time to time with some sort of collectible item. At the moment Countdown's running one with cutlery, so a very practical reward scheme. This was a Super Insects series, and it came with collector cards with bits about insects and things, but also these effectively puzzle pieces, but they're just plain rectangles. I think there were at least 3 different insects, so butterfly, grasshopper, or something like that, and there was something else, can't remember now. Bee, that's it, a bee. So they're the 3 types that I've got. I don't know if there were more than that. And we never get a full set of anything, and I didn't really want these cards. Wasn't interested in trying to put them together as a puzzle. I've kept the other cards for the time being. The ones with like a picture of the full insect and a description of it and where it's found and all that sort of thing. Really good for kids. But these ones, they were just waste, but I didn't want to throw them out because they're actually really good quality cardstock, quite thick, thicker than what I would like for this purpose, but they still work really well. Now, if you don't have anything like this, then cut up a box, any box, a tea bag box or a biscuit box or a pasta box, whatever you've got. If you don't like the outside, then use the plain inside, because most boxes have that either browny or white interior. Just use that as your frame, and so the pattern or the text or whatever you don't like can be the bit that's sandwiched in between, because you need 2 pieces for each slide. You can also cut them to whatever size you like. Because I'm using these cards that came like this, I'm using this size, but you could make them whatever size you like. If you don't have any boxes available, an old manila folder, have a look around, hunt through what you might have. Some old greeting cards where there's either you like the image on it and you can use the image to be your frame, or the inside, if it hasn't been written on, can be your frame, and just put the image on the inside so it can't be seen. So that's some ideas of what you can use. And then the third thing that's waste is this these little stamps that I've done here. They're done on vintage map and just little offcuts, and then on the offcuts I've done other wee stamps as well. So I'm super happy with how they turned out. I've got a few rectangles, 1 square by the look of it. Don't know how I ended up with only 1 square, and a couple of circles. So I'm going to go through the process and how I do them. I'm sure there's lots of ways to do them. They're quite a popular thing on YouTube. If you search faux slide or faux specimen slides, then you'll find lots of people who make them. I was inspired by a lady I watched, and I wrote down her name, Casablanca Cargo. That's the video, her video that I watched when she was making faux specimen slide folded cards, which is slightly different again. But there we go. So hopefully you can get a good sense of those. And I'm using pressed flowers and leaves that were given to me. If you don't have flowers or leaves that are pressed already, then you can use whatever you like. You could use feathers, you could use stickers. Lots of people use stickers. In fact, Casablanca Cargo, she did stickers in her ones that she was doing. The washi stickers are particularly good because they're more transparent than a regular white sort of paper sticker. But you could use whatever. Use whatever you've got. You could use magazine cutouts, whatever you want. The only thing with those is because these are double-sided, if you use, for example, a magazine image, then you'll have the text or part of an image or whatever on the back of it, which is fine if you're not going to have these floating. So these are perfect for floating because you can look at them on both sides and appreciate what's inside. But just have a play. There's lots of ways you can do these. Okay, so I've cut out some frames ready. So I've matched these up in pairs according basically to colour. So I've got those, and I've got a couple here that I've already cut the plastic for, the cellophane. So I've got a square one there and another round one there. So this is the type of thing I'm using. It's just a cellophane self-sealing bag that I've chopped up. So this is a good one. This is one that I've just got. But you know, it comes on products. People use them to send happy mail in these days. And it would have just been thrown out eventually anyway. This is all I've got left of this bag that I've been using. And I'm just going to show you the preparing of another one. The square and rectangles I used my die cutting machine, my Cuttlebug. And for the round ones I've used this big punch. And I must say the punch is actually easier to get the aperture, which is the hole, in approximately the right place on both your pieces. So there we go, just cutting that out, and all I'm doing is lining up the edges of my card and just eyeballing the distance on both sides to be approximately the same, and it's working fairly well for me doing it that way. Now, it was a little bit trickier with the die cuts because I found that the interior of the die cut wasn't the same as what it actually punched out. So I ended up with the holes not being aligned when I went to put the two pieces together. So with those, all I did was I lined up according to the inside and then just trimmed off any overhang on all the other sides, and that worked pretty well. So some of them are slightly smaller than the others, where I've had to trim a bit off. Okay, so that's all I did there, and then they go back to back like so, and I can see I was slightly off, but not enough to worry about. If you don't have a punch or a die cutting machine, then by all means you can cut the rectangle or the squares with a paper trimmer. You could rule the shape and then cut it with scissors or a craft knife. And I had another idea then. What was it? It's flow in the coop. Yeah, so there's more than one way that you can achieve it. So don't be put off if you don't have a punch or a die cutting machine. Although another idea is, if you've got a friend with one, is perhaps arrange a little coffee date and go around and have a play with their die cutting and do a whole bunch all at once. That's another idea. But if you don't have these tools, you can still achieve good results. Just might take a little bit longer with a little bit more effort. So that's that. So then you need two pieces of this plastic or the cellophane. You can also use page protectors or acetate. I've got acetate, I just can't find it at the moment, so I hunted around and found this cellophane. You could also laminate them if you've got a laminator. I do have a laminator, but I wanted to do something that was sort of more attainable for most people, because not everybody has a laminator. So I'm just going to cut a couple of pieces of this, and I'm just making sure it covers all round my cutout, so I've got room to adhere it. And it's slightly wide, so I'm just going to trim it down a tad, because you don't want it poking out the side of your specimen card. And then I'm going to cut a second piece. Now you can do this on the fold and just cut a piece that's folded on one edge. I did that on my first ones and then ran out of edges to do that with, so I went to the middle where it was just loose cellophane. And I actually prefer the loose cellophane. I find it's easier to get a tighter fit, whereas the fold kind of dictates where it wants to go and can leave a little bit of extra space between the layers. Okay, for this process I do prefer double-sided tape. I find it works better, and these are slippery, and I don't want to have to sand them all or do anything silly like that. So I find double-sided tape works really well on the slippery surface, and just for ease of placement. You can certainly use glue if you prefer. It will still work fine. I just find this, for me personally, is easier. And I'm just going to snip this, so I'm not sure how wide this is, maybe 12 millimeters. I'm just snipping it into short little sections. If I was doing a rectangle, I'd just go straight strips, long strips. But to go around the circle, I'm just cutting it into short little bits so that I can work it around the circle and get it nice and sealed. Oops, stuck to my finger very well. Okay, oops, a bit stuck on the scissors. So it takes a little bit of time, but it is only a little bit of time. It goes quite quickly. And just not cutting them too long, because if they're too long then you'll miss parts of the circle, and you still will even with short little pieces. You'll find these little gaps, but this is fine for the purpose. And just one more little bit. I've got a thin roll there as well, but I tend to save the thin roll because I can make the wider roll thinner, but I can't make the thin roll wider. So I like to save it for places where it's needed, that thin roll's needed, without messing around cutting. Right, so I'm just taking off the backing now of the tape. I hope everyone's having a good day. It's very, very wet here again today. It's just been raining non-stop overnight. It's more of a misty rain though than it was last week. This week's sort of softer, not so intense, but it's just pretty consistent and very, very wet. Okay, now this cellophane has some crinkles in it, some dents and creases and things. I'm not worried about that at all. It just adds to that I guess, aged look, worn look, used. Okay, now I'm just going to trim off that little bit of excess down past where the tape is. I could leave it. It would be fine left. I just like to tidy it up. I don't know why. So hopefully wherever you are warm and dry. Okay, now I'm going to go in again and do another another layer of tape around the circle. But I'm not going to get it as close in this time. I'm just going to put a few pops around. And this is going to hold the two layers of the cellophane together. You could go all the way around, but and if you're using a sticker, then just put a couple of pieces in place, because the sticker is going to hold by itself with its self-adhesive. So I'm going to put a few more. Wasn't going to put so many, but could end up with almost as many. Just a couple of those gaps that looked a little bit big to me. Right. Now before I peel those off, I'm going to look for what I'm going to put inside my specimen. So this is my tray here of, if you can see it all, of dried leaves and flowers that I was given. And as you can see, some of them are just a little bit big to make a specimen slide with. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with that gigantic leaf. And there's some other big leaves as well. Not as big as that, but, you know, I could make, this one's cracked, but pretty colours. This one's broken. They are starting to show a bit of wear and tear of being moved around the house. So yeah, not sure what I'm going to do with all of them. Some of them I might throw out, like this little bug-eaten one. Might end up being thrown out. I don't know. We'll see. But really, really cool. And I've just got to be very careful when I'm sifting through them, looking for what I want, that I don't break and damage them, because they're quite fragile. So I've got this little paper seed capsule thing, whatever it is. Not actually sure what it's called. I'm thinking that could be quite interesting. So I'm just going to cut off the excess, because I don't want that sticking outside the frame. And just a little bit off the top pointy bit. And that, yep, that will be fine. So now I'm going to remove the backing off the tape. The other way you could do your pictures is make yourself a little template of the shape and draw around it, and then cut that out with a craft knife or scissors. Right, so never let having the right tools, or the right tools is what I mean, because any tools just makes things easier and quicker. It's not necessarily needed, because they never used to have them years ago. Right, now the tricky part with this is, because the cellophane tends to be a bit staticky, it can lift up what you're trying to sandwich between the plastic, as it did then, but not too bad. So there we go, we've got our little specimen sandwiched between the layers of the cellophane. I don't know if you can see that, if the glare is too bad. Right, now we go back in with more tape. So I'm going to pop some around the edge of the hole. And because this doesn't actually have to hold much in, it's just to hold the back and the front together, I really don't need heaps. Just enough to secure it and make sure there's no air gaps that will show the two layers too much. Right, now I need some around the edges. And this is where you could definitely use glue. So yeah, whatever you prefer. A quick drying glue is probably a good idea, especially if your surface is shiny like this is. If it's not shiny, then it won't matter quite so much, but with the shiny surface, things tend to slide around a bit. So quick drying glue will minimize the slide. Of course, getting your two pieces in the right position, you might appreciate a little bit of sliding action to get it where you want it. And just oops, get down the right place. Sorry, I've gone quiet. You know, you have to concentrate on this tape business. She says tongue in cheek. Right, it's taking the backing off that. I don't know if you can hear the noise in the background. It's my dishwasher. So if that's bugging you, I'm sorry about that. I don't think it will be, because maybe I'm just used to it. But if you do hear the noise, that's what it is. Right, and now the trickiest part of this whole business is lining up your two pieces. And this one was slightly off, but not too much to worry about. So I'm just going to line up the edges. Right, there we go. And I do like to distress the edges of these. If you can see the difference, I don't know whether you can see the difference between this one is distressed and this one isn't. And this is quite a white edge, and I like that dulled down, so I do distress the edge. It's quite hard on my sponge. It's breaking down. This is the same sponge as I had, but I chopped the bottom off to give it a fresh base. But doing around these edges, which are slightly serrated because they were joined together, they would tear apart, is really cutting into the sponge. So I'm going to have to grab a new one, I think, after I've finished these, and just save this for these rough jobs where it's really going to mess up the sponge. And you probably can't see all the stuff on my mat at the moment, but it's really cutting it up. Lots and lots and lots of crumbs. But I just prefer that not to be so white around the edge. Okay, I just need to wipe up these crumbs because they'll transfer ink to everything if I don't. There we go, I think that's all of them. Right, now to finish this off, I've got my little stamped checked images here, which is from my new stamp set that arrived on Friday. So, whoops, upside down. So this little round checked stamp, which I think is quite cool. I used to work in a museum for a while, and we had to do checks on inventory to make sure that what was on the books was still down in the what do you call it, the vault. And so they do have to check things. Right now I'm just looking for the best placement. Sometimes these are helpful to cover up little bits that you don't want. So there's kind of a bit of the bee, kind of looks just a bit ugly at that point. Still got crumbs everywhere. kind of like it there better. Okay, so for this I do use glue stick. So sorry, I'm just going to reach over here where my glue book is to put some glue on that. And I do put it over the edge, usually put it over the edge of the opening. And if it sticks to the acetate, doesn't matter. If it does or doesn't, either way is fine. And this map has numbers on it, so I liked to get a number in there if I could. I haven't got a number on all of them because it wasn't going to work. And on these ones where I've got space, I like to put another stamp from this stamp set, like a label. Can you hear Georgie? He's talking to his brother. So I'm thinking maybe this long one. And I just didn't grab out any paper. So there we go, this will do. And my block. Now I have had issues with these stamps not stamping properly if I just do it on my mat. So I found that putting a book underneath works better for these. And they get air bubbles between the stamp and the block, more so than any other stamp I own actually. And I think that also has an impact on how well it stamps. So I find if I do it on a top of a book, there's a bit more give for it to meld in. And then I pick it up and press from behind as well as on top. Now, sometimes that results in a blurry image, but not this time. I got lucky. Oops, stuck to my glue page. So then I'm just going to trim that up. I'm going to leave a slight little border. Don't have to leave a border, you can just trim it up. And if you don't have these stamps like this, you don't have to put a stamp on. You could just put a little bit of writing paper, collage on some coffee dyed paper. You could use a printable label or a sticker label. Again, use whatever you've got. So this is just on a scrap, and I'm just going to do it to the side. I'm sorry you can't see it, but it will save me having to clean the crumbs off my desk. You talking, Georgie? Both cats have just been outside in the rain, so now they're back in front of the fire. Right, like that. So I've just given a stress around the edge, and just going to go in with my glue stick again. And this is decoration, but you can also write on this label. So for some of them you can have writing space like this. For some of those others where there's not much of a frame, then they're just purely decoration to pop in a pocket or something and be interesting for the person to find. And you can pop these in any style of journal. Obviously they do particularly suit a nature theme or a floral. You'll probably do a farm one. Actually some seeds inside would be quite cool. Some little mustard seeds or something inside your specimen slide. And you can also put something on the back as more writing space if you wish. But there we go, there's a faux specimen slide. So I'm going to do one more, and I'll do a square one just so you can see the different way I do the tape. I don't know if that's helpful for you or not, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I'm going to start with a strip under the frame. And on some of these I have multiple layers of tape. And it's not a problem. It's not going to bulk it up too much. It's not going to make it too thick, but it will help it stay really secure. And while I'm here, I'm also going to do the bottom section. Right, and now I need some thinner strips for the other three sides. Sorry, hope I'm on camera. Leaning back in my chair again. Oops. And I've gone quiet again. Okay. It's fighting a little bit with the tape, wanting to stick to me and everything. Right, so again, just taking off that tape. So I'm not going to take it off the bottom bit yet, because that's for when I put the two cards together. But I thought I might as well put it down there while I was doing it. Right, grab a bit of cellophane. And the other thing with cellophane, because it's static, it's picking up all sorts of lint, like cat fur. Wonder whose fur that is, Georgie. That's probably not actually Georgie's. It's more likely to be Snuggles, because she's the one that hops on my desk and has cuddles. Right, again, I'm just trimming off the excess of that cellophane. Right, now to decide what I'm going to put in this one. Got a wee flower here. Looks like it's missing a petal or two. Trying to look for something I haven't used yet that's the right size for the opening. Oops. Bits of broken things flying at me. That's a broken leaf. Oh, here's a pretty leaf. Maybe we'll do this one. Yep, let's do that leaf. So now just go back in with tape. So where's the end of my tape gone? Oh, there it is. So yeah, don't worry about layering up layers of tape over top of each other or overlapping. It's not going to be a problem. And it's going to help everything stick together. So hopefully this is inspiring for you all out there that you might want to try something similar. Just remember to do it whichever way you want with whatever you've got. It's not about using special tools or special supplies. It's just about using up some waste items to make something really cool. Yeah, save that a little bit. Oops, get off my finger. Right. Peel that off again. Oops. Taking off all the bits I can see that are stuck to it. It's a constant thing here, cat fur. It's a fact of life. Right, trim off. Now in this case I definitely need to trim off this because I don't want it sticking out the top of my faux specimen slide. There we go. And now you're probably waiting for this. We're back in with our tape for the final layer. It may seem like it uses a lot of tape, and I guess it probably does, but if you cut your tape down, and these rolls pick up for $2 each, it's not a huge deal. It's quite cost effective. Oops. Ah, come on. I need an extra pair of hands. I tell you what, I seem to have trouble on camera with some things. You know, I do it off camera and it all goes smoothly, and then I hop on, film it, and suddenly everything happens and goes wrong and goes sideways and gives me issues. I guess it will get better as I get more experience filming. Well, I hope so anyway. I guess it's natural that with the extra pressure and just the knowledge that you're doing it on camera in front of people who will see the video, kind of just does weird mind games somehow. Right, and I'll just use up this little bit of excess down there. Oh, I'm getting a bit dry, excuse me. I'm just going to have a wee drink of my coffee. That's getting cold. I need to hurry up and drink it, otherwise it will be stone cold and gross. My husband drinks cold tea and coffee, and often finishes mine, but I can't think of anything worse. Gross. Right, one more bit of tape. Without sticking myself. Now, I didn't actually check the alignment on these, so hopefully you won't get my head in camera, but I'm going to have to sit fairly well up over it so I can line it up as best as possible. It looks pretty good on the inside. And I've just got a little bit to trim up on the edges. So when that happens, just go in there and trim off the overhang. And so it looks like I've got overhang on all four sides, or an overhang and an underhang, if you can term it like that. This card's obviously a monarch butterfly puzzle. Sad to hear that they're considered endangered now. I would have thought they weren't, because I see them flying around quite a bit. Obviously not at the moment because it's winter. But yeah, I was quite surprised. And I know lots of people in our area, in springtime, they have the swan plants and they feed the caterpillars and watch them grow, go into the chrysalis and then come out as butterflies. Right, so we've got a monarch on that side and a bee. There's a flower and just a bee leg here. So there we go. So that's trimming up the edges. I will do the distressing around the edge off camera so that you don't have to watch me do that, and then clean up the crumbs. And I'm just going to pop on my little, now which side do I want it on? That side or that side? Oops, it looks like I've got a little something caught between the cellophane. Never mind. If you're using things like these dried flowers and that, you do get little bits that break off or transfer from them that end up floating inside. It's really not an issue. Right, I'm going to pop that down there. Oops, wind out my glue stick a bit more. Down the side. Now, do I want the same stamp? Yep, I think we'll go with that same stamp. So just grab back my paper. And I should have room to get it down the side here. Using up all the bits of paper. I try not to waste anything. So Always think about how I'm using things to get the most out of it. Right, and again I'm just going to pick up the book so I can press from underneath as well. I don't know if you can see the state of my block. I'm not sure what's up with it. It's gone quite grungy and cloudy. My other one that I've used at the same time hasn't, so yeah, not quite sure why. And I keep wiping it with a wet wipe and it just doesn't seem to make any difference. So maybe I'll have to give it a bath and see if I can bring it up better. I mean, it still works fine. It's just, yeah, it doesn't look the best. Right. Just trim that off so it's easy to deal with. Trim around it quickly. I said quickly, so then I start fumbling things. So this stamp just has date written on it and then some dotted lines for writing on. So it's quite appropriate too to have date written on a specimen slide. I think that fits well. Whoops, I didn't distress this one. It's too late now. I've got the glue on. So this one's not going to be distressed. I'll still do the edges of the faux specimen slide though. There we go. So there we have another one done, bar for the distressing around the edges. So made two. Where did I put the other one? Here. So got two. I didn't intend to do a whole heap. I just wanted to really show you the process and how I do it and the idea. And I just think they look super cool. In fact, I showed the ones I did yesterday afternoon, I showed them to my husband when he got home and he thought I'd bought them. He's like, where did you get them from? I was like, I made them. So yeah, that was lovely to hear that he thought I'd bought them. Oh, and this one here I used a brown paper bag for the label. So hopefully you've got some ideas from that. I'd love to see what you make. Pop along to Visual Vibes and post photos of anything that you make on after being inspired by this, or just to say hi or leave me a comment in the description down below the video, a thumbs up, subscribe. All of those things are great. I'd love to hear from you and I hope you've enjoyed this and I shall see you in the next video. Bye bye.